Death still faces me, but I'm alright. I'm alright.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a show that will surprise you, amaze you. It's a little something I like to call ENDGAME with your hosts, Nomono, Poplopo, and Psych.
Yay! I kind of wanted him to do it again because you guys weren't dancing in the background. Like, that seemed more appropriate.
Dance.
You didn't do anything. Well, I assumed it was...
No, this is a live show. This is a live audience. We gotta keep going. The show must go on. Let's do it.
This week you wanted to talk about gamification, and I have a lot of questions, and I feel like you're going to have a lot to teach us, but we'll get there in a minute. We're starting off with the community spotlight. We're going to hear someone talk about what they think is going to happen in the future, how things are going to go, if we're going to magically go off into a wonderland or not. Oh, did I even talk about you guys? Oh, it doesn't matter. Hey, Clem, you're up.
It doesn't matter. We're fine. All right, Clem,
All right,
tell us, what is
off.
your vision of our future, of humanity's destiny?
I don't know. I've kind of been neutral on this whole thing. I hear a lot of good things, and I've heard a lot of bad things. I guess I can bring some perspective. I do work in an industry that could either be made or broken by more automation, AI, and other whatnot. So I guess for a little background, I am a CNC machinist for a living. Usually that involves, for the most part, I'm an operator. I don't get the glamour, but
Yeah, what does the CNC stand for?
Computer numerical control. Essentially, the long story short is someone writes a code, the machine interprets a set of code, moves a set of tools that will shape steel, plastic, or whatever you put in it.
So is it like 3D printing?
It's 3D printing backwards. You take a solid piece of stock, and you're taking layer by layer by layer until it's the shape you want, instead of adding layers up.
There's a couple of CNC people in the house. I think Rejinx might be one too.
Wow.
But I mean, in the industry, from the beginning, it would start off a lot of hand tools, a lot of hand carving. Then from there, they discovered they could get steam-powered belts and other things that would still spin the stuff, but you still had to be in charge of it. You still had to control the tools by hand. Then down the line, they got tape readers, just using binary tape code to run these things. And from there, now we have computers. So now we just need someone at a lower level who can come in every day. Yeah, so what the industry is, with a lot of advancements in robotics, it's taking more jobs away because now we don't need to pay someone to stand by the machine all day. But like in my shop, it's too expensive. The machines break very easily, the robotics. They're touchy. They're always programmed to go to the exact same spot. So if something's in their way, they don't know. They're going to hit it, they can crash, and that can knock it out for a day to week, depending on when parts are and all that. With the programs, we normally will have them written by one programmer. He'll write program for each part and we'll save them. I saw one in our shop. They take macro programs, and instead of doing one part every time, we're telling a basic part, and from there we can control the variables. So one program can run hundreds of other style things. And again, along with the robotics, this is eating away at potential jobs. But at the same time, it can create the advancement of one person running more machines, thus creating a higher output, higher quality parts with the same workforce.
In this industry, as you can see this trajectory happening and the way the industry changes, where would you like all this to go? Say your industry, like 200 years in the future, what would you like it to look like?
I mean, ideally, I guess it'd be just have a trained handful of technicians there who know how to fix something when it's broken, and just someone to basically keep an eye on the place and be there to put out the theoretical fires, rather.
You think in 200 years a human technician is going to be better at that than a robot technician?
Good point. But I mean, someone's always got to be there to turn the machines on. As I was actually talking about this with my buddy today, and he was saying that no matter how far we advance we get, we're still going to have to be someone's got to be there to turn something on.
Yeah, we have to click the button. Well, that's why humans will be necessary. We got to push the button, get it all going.
Yep, we got that minimum wage, so someone can come in every morning, press go, and then go home.
Well, wait, I want to have a counter argument to that really quick. Just a quick demonstration, if I may. Tom, you're a synth. Okay, so let's just run through a quick example, right? Like, here I am, I'm off, and you are a robot, and you're going to come over and turn me on. Here we go.
Okay.
And then I boot up, and I go, thank you, Tom. And I turn you off. I go do my work, and then I turn you back on. Boop, and you can turn me off. And why are we even turning ourselves off? We can live forever, and we're superior to all the humans. So you don't need a human in the process.
I wanted to give my weekly reminder that nobody can predict technology. That's why we're not in flying cars. That's why we're not in floating pipes like George Jetson fan, whoever was talking about George Jetson.
We predicted VR way before we ever developed it. Like, that sort of thing is predictable.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Did we?
Yeah, we did.
How?
Yeah.
Did we predict vision only VR, or did we predict being able to touch and feel things VR? We've never, ever, ever been able to predict technology. It always goes in a different direction.
I think it matters how accurately you mean, right? Like, I think we can predict things roughly, and like a lot of things will catch us by surprise. Maybe flying cars didn't come, but like...
Yeah, there's helicopters, cool, but there's no flying cars. There's
we predicted that we would go to space, and then we did. Like, that sort of thing.
Okay, kind of. We kind of went to local space, and we've been playing around and shooting.
It still counts.
It counts, but it's not a prediction of what we thought we would be doing. We thought we'd be traveling light years away back in the day, and we can't do that.
We predicted robots would kill all humans.
I'm not sure.
And that happened.
Oh, well, yeah, but they haven't done that yet. How can we pretend to say that automation is going to take over everything when that's kind of just like a meme at this point? Because it probably won't take over everything. There are going to be people needing to do things to facilitate this automation.
No, and maybe so. But the difference between prediction and imagination...
Definitely so. No, maybe so.
The difference between prediction and imagination is, with prediction, you've got more reliable variables to extrapolate from. Imagination is just
not with technology. We've never been able to predict technology ever. Ever.
I've seen two instances in the last 5 minutes.
No, you haven't. What? Which two instances? You said go into space. Yeah. Okay. So okay. You said we can go into space.
You said flying cars. So that's 2 to 1.
And Jetsons tubes. I said 2. I could say a million more, and you know it.
I feel
prediction if it was on a fictional TV show.
Does it count as a prediction if you say we're going to go into space? Well, of course, once we know there's space, we're going to go into space, but we haven't went where we thought we were going to go into space.
Similar to going into the ocean.
Who's we? Who are you talking about? Are you sure?
Okay, now it's becoming ridiculous.
I agree.
all right. So I feel like this is something we can return to as a larger subject.
Technology is hard. Technology is hard to predict, is what I'm saying, and it might not.
Yeah, I think we can all agree to some level of that.
Think.
All right.
Automation might be a meme. It might not come as soon as you guys think.
It's actually impossible to say we didn't predict anything, because with every single human mind in this human race, we can theoretically predict everything that's going to happen the exact way it's going to happen. It's just it's populated between so many people that one person's predictions will only be, let's say, 1% right and 99% wrong compared to everybody else. And each person, adds that 1% until, the future is made. So technically, no, you can predict the future. It's just very, very difficult. And everybody has their own idea of the future.
Yeah, I would like to touch on automation. I work in the transportation industry. So basically when trucks, there's a freight hub, and I'm basically the one who's on the forklift taking the pallets and then putting them into another trailer. And I do see automation putting a lot of people out of business, because I heard on the news there's an article about Elon Musk, and he was talking about AI computers running semi-trucks. So that means in the future, regardless, in 5 years, I'm pretty sure I predict maybe 5 years. What do truck drivers do? They have to sleep, they have to eat, they have to take breaks. But they're going to have to roll it out, because it's going to change the industry, because FedEx, UPS, it's going to be so much cheaper because you won't have to pay all that labor.
The problem with having automation driving vehicles and whatnot is the one thing is the company is going to be liable. When a machine hits another machine, where now the human is always to blame. we'll fire this guy and it looks good in the courts when they get their butts sued because they hit somebody.
Yeah.
Whereas now, how are you going to sue a machine?
I think that the insurance industry is where that's going to happen, but I think it is going to be hashed out. And I think coming back to the truck drivers as the specific example, one interesting statistic is that if you look at every state and what the most common career is in each state in the United States, truck driving is one of the top careers, most common careers of what people end up doing. So I think that my prediction is that truck driving, the automation of that specific occupation is going to force our society to confront the overall impact that automation is going to put on everyone eventually. But truck driving, I think, is going to be like the kind of thing that tips the scale in the direction of us having to accept that automation is going to replace jobs.
I love this topic, but we really should probably move on to our main topic, or what was supposed to be our main topic for the night. Gamification. So I guess first we've got to define gamification. Psych, how do you define it?
I guess it's anything that involves artificially putting a reward in front of someone to incentivize them to behave in a certain way. And we talked earlier about like games obviously are gamified, but I think the term gamification is often really used to reference things that are not typically thought of as games, but where you're introducing a reward and then eliciting the targeted behavior of what you want the person to do, or kind of using rewards to motivate people to behave in certain ways.
Make people feel like they're playing a game when they're not.
Actually, a lot of times I think gamification is used and people don't even realize, like we're about to watch a video of pigeons. The pigeons don't actually know that they're in a game or that there's any kind of gamification happening. They're just interacting with their environment and they're manipulated into behaving in a certain way. So I think that,
So
I think
you're saying
oftentimes we're not
gamification
aware.
is equivalent to conditioning?
Yeah, actually, I guess that I would equate the two.
Okay. I don't know that I would. Well, conditioning can happen in any situation. Like, it can happen on its own, it can happen organically, it can happen artificially. Like, it's, when you're basically conditioned into a response, you learn to associate some input with some reaction that you have. With gamification, that seems like it's a specific design, essentially. It's designed to evoke basically a certain conditioned response, rather than it just happening or just being a byproduct of another system. Like, someone is writing something down that says, we're going to make people, we're going to give people this reward so that they'll behave in this way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That kind of classifies it really well. How many people here think that you are, besides video games, how many people think that they participate in some kind of like gamified activity in some way? I think.
See, there's a different angle to what you just said about the reward system. There's the fear system. The fear system.
Yeah.
I worked for the railway. I'm retired now, but this last CEO we had, he would put the fear of life into everybody so that they would perform. And most of the time, what would happen is you'd screw up because you were so scared of getting fired.
But was he was that part of the company design? Like, did he integrate that into the procedures and the setup of how it all worked?
When he started with our company, that's exactly what he did. Start the layoffs, start firing people, start this. Everybody was scared. He made a few examples and he ruled with an iron fist, basically. Instead of the reward system, it was the other way around. Is basically you were begging to keep your job.
Well, also, these are two ends of a continuum approach and avoidance. That's like the typical psychology behavior split into you can either be approaching something, a stimulus, or avoiding it. And so negative outcomes and stuff is in reinforcing behavior through avoidance, and then positive outcomes is reinforcing behavior through approach or reward.
So fear definitely is an effective method, but personally, do you think is fear more effective than the reward system for you?
The reward system, if it's any good, will actually give people incentive to enjoy what they do, to want to do better, and so on and so forth. What this guy's doing is basically nobody wants to do any extra. Nobody wants to step up to the plate when something happens. If a crash is imminent, screw it, let it crash.
So in my mind, gamification is sort of mostly using the reward system, where it's trying to work positively to push you in a direction. So it's not necessarily fear,
different examples. So let's bring up some examples, right? Because that'll kind of, I think, illustrate it a little bit. Okay, yeah. So on Google Maps, there's the system where you can be a contributor to Google Maps, and you can, leave reviews and provide information on different locations and take photos. And if you contribute in all these ways to Google Maps, you accumulate a score, and then with that score you'll gain levels. And so if you get to certain levels, you'll get different rewards. So like if you get to level 5, I think for instance, you can increase your amount of Google Drive space, and so that's like a material reward that you can get from contributing to this non-game app. Like it's not a game, it's a utility that everyone uses, but they've turned it into a game by adding scores and rewards and bonuses.
I think that gambling is basically where a lot of the theories behind, like even credit card reward points, things like that.
Oh yeah, that
airline reward points, all these things. The rate of wins that you experience actually in games like Overwatch, where they're matching teams against each other and can choose what the likelihood of what team is going to win before they even match the teams. All of these are properties that deviate from one theoretical foundation, which is conditioning. I haven't thought about this in this way before, that gamification is synonymous with conditioning. And I think I have a video about pigeons. I think it'd be cool to play so that we can get a sense of where this came from, even though this is an old dude this nerdy dude is like one of the most brilliant people in psychology.
He's learned his different response to each sign by being rewarded with food.
Oh, he's smart.
So the bird isn't acting independently.
Yeah, right.
Its behavior is shaped by controlling its environment.
The main thing is what we call schedules of reinforcement. Reinforcement is what the layman calls reward, and you can schedule it so that a reward occurs every now and then when a pigeon does something. One of the schedules which is very effective with rats or pigeons is what we call the variable ratio schedule, and that is at the heart of all gambling devices and has the same effect. The pigeon can become a pathological gambler just as a person can.
So the whole reason I was so excited to show this video is that if you think about any of the reward structures that are put into credit cards or are put in level systems that are encouraged to motivate us, I would argue that a lot of these, including video games, are all designed in a way that it's just like we're in the box. It's called a Skinner box that the pigeon was in. We humans can be in a box so we don't even realize we're in, clicking to get pellets and rewards in a systematic way that's designed, and that's what gambling and casinos are in some ways, are systematically designed to elicit a behavior that's really us just giving money to a corporation generally, I think. But this gamification, I think, very well explained in terms of the theoretical foundations of these elements. So
I do think that our entire society has been engaging in this gamification process for hundreds of years, maybe. Like the entire social hierarchy and keeping up with your neighbors and climbing your corporate ladder and all that kind of stuff.
That seems like a decent argument, right? Because like all of our social interactions are based on some kind of reward system. Like we don't do anything in the social environment unless we get something out of it. Yeah.
Well, so he's talking about the way it evolves into the system naturally. Like that's how the system supports itself. But like you're talking more about when it's very intentional, right?
Dopamine.
Like where it's somebody taking control or using gamification, or you're not, or using it that loosely that it is just something that evolves out of society naturally.
Yeah. I think it's evolved. I mean, it's evolved to dopamine is released when we engage in certain actions that are rewarding. And that's why back to when you talk about negative reinforcement, this comes back to the idea that approach and avoidance is on one spectrum and that we are condition, or that our natural neurobiological response to stimuli is to release chemicals or have a response that is either like an approach related response or an avoidance related response, and that we learn, and that learning through those experiences of approach and avoidance related, like chemicals releasing like dopamine as a positive reinforcer, that's how we interact with the world.
For the sake of simplicity, I would suggest that we use the term gamification to mean the taking that neurobiology and intentionally hacking it to produce a certain result. It comes about in all sorts of different scenarios, but there are people that take that and intentionally attempt to utilize that for their own gain. So, what do you got, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay, so I am actually the proxy tonight for Sarah Realms. So she said a friend of hers works at GameStop. They have a system that is pure gamification for training/performance. They have a level up training thing where you get points for doing stuff. The points do nothing though. And that is such a phone app game method to me.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's like one of those
like Reddit
phone
upvotes, too.
gotcha games or
Right,
yeah,
they
something
don't
like
really
that.
do
Yeah,
anything,
same.
but
Well, no, Reddit
can show you
upvotes
a lot
do
of them.
something, right? They promote a story, but like, well, I mean, that's something.
No, for like your karma.
Oh.
Your karma,
though.
sorry.
Oh, karma means nothing. Yeah,
Your total karma, like your score.
Means nothing.
I thought karma actually did do something on Reddit. Is that not built into
Actually,
the
it does
system?
mean- well, you know what? Actually, these things. Actually,
don't
one of
know.
the things that you and I
Maybe I don't
discussed
have
was
enough.
validation. That's what one of
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
the
that's-
reward. So we talked about sources. Yeah, sources of reward. Like, what is the ultimate? If you look at each thing that's gamified, airline points. What's the reward? It's monetary. It's that you get to save money and you get to book new flights. There's also the validation. So feeling like Facebook, I would say, gamifies things by like promoting your posts necessarily or like having you get more validation. But I think this example, Reddit upvotes or the GameStop example are both they're forms of validation that I'm working alongside this person who's also making $7.25 an hour. But you know what? I'm level 35 and they're level 27.
Fuck level 27s. I was just gonna say Xbox achievement points were really stupid, and I was blown away at how effective they were. Right, people actually cared, and it got people to like Xbox achievement points. So like people would play games just to get achievement points, which is a completely non. Like,
what are those? I don't know.
well, it's nothing. It's just a number next to your username.
The point is to make so that like, oh yeah, you got an achievement, but you've also got a score. So you have the individual achievements.
I know with the Xbox One, I noticed that it does show you a weekly report of what your friends have done achievement-wise and what you've done. It does kind of it does have a local
So that
friend
adds
ranking.
competition into it. And maybe some validation,
And
but it
validation,
doesn't
yeah.
have to. Like, the numbers can be rewarding to people on their own.
That makes sense, right? It's cool if you get a trophy for doing a difficult task in a game and you can show it off to your friends. But there were games that would come out that were shitty games, but they would give achievement points. And so people would buy those games to do some kind of simple task. Like you get 200 points just for starting the game. And so now people are spending money on a totally not, and it's working.
It drives me crazy because, like, they'll give you achievements for literally the most minimal tasks that are required in the game. You'll do them, and it's like, hey, rewards you! Hooray! Look what you did! Oh, you're so good!
So, as a sailor, I got the opportunity to go through an experience known as boot camp. And what is boot camp? Boot camp is where they take people from all across the country and even sometimes across the world, all these different types of people, and they smash them all together and they put them within inside of a uniform to work together. They make basically trained sailors. And so how do you take this huge, massive irregularity and conform it? Well, they do that through a game. All of what boot camp is a giant game. They start you out in what's called P-Days, in which you basically have all of your rights as a human being almost stripped away from you. You start out that day by calling your parents and telling them that you aren't going to be talking to them until like weeks later. And then you take all of your stuff and you put it in a box, and they take that box and you never see it until the end of boot camp. Then you go into a big room, you walk around in a circle and you pee in a cup, and then they take you out and then you get naked with about 100 other sailors and you put on their terrible clothes. And then you go out there and you're getting yelled at the entire time. And then you're told exactly when you're going to eat, when you're going to sleep, all this stuff. You're not treated like a person that can think on their own at all. They expect to control every single aspect of your life. You're taught how to properly fold your clothes, how to make your bed, how to sleep, how to eat, how to talk, how to walk, how to march, how to basically address people, how to look at people, who you can look at, who you can't look at. And the entire time you see all these senior divisions walking around, and the way that they talk and the way that they move and everything is exactly what everybody else is teaching you. But also they've got this thing, the RDCs, which in layman's terms, or how I would explain it to all of you, they're basically like the drill sergeants of the Navy boot camp. They're the ones that run the division. These RDCs are kind of the ones that control every aspect of your life in boot camp. And you'll really, 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 really notice as soon as you're in there that the RDCs treat the senior divisions so much better than they treat the baby divisions. Also, the entire time, the RDCs are given the utmost respect. So when you get respect as a senior division, or you watch a senior division get respect by these highly respected chiefs and petty officers that are highly decorated in the Navy, training all these brand new sailors entrusted with that task, you feel this feeling of, I want to be respected by that individual as well. I want to respect that individual. I want to be held on the same level as that individual. And so the entire time, you're working for this approval that you will never get until like the very end, where they still don't really treat you like a human, but they'll at least talk to you and joke with you towards the end. And it's like this weird method of conforming people through the want to be respected, the want to be treated like a human, the want to feel like, yes, I can do things on my own. I'd say the main training that boot camp is it trains you to work in this environment of diversity yet conformity, and just work smoothly and efficiently, do the mission at hand at all costs. And that's basically how that game went.
How do you
sounds like this intense reconditioning? That's
how do you feel about it? Like, how much do you feel the conditioning like afterward?
Honestly, that whole respect thing is not something that I realized until later. The whole conforming and me not wanting to get like beat, you know what I mean? Because if you do something wrong, you get beat, which is basically you get forced to do push-ups and like all these other physical activities, or you have to do something stupid like clean something that's really nasty, and that's basically the punishment, you know what I mean? And so at first I thought that was my incentive, the fear, not wanting to get punished. But thinking back at it later, it was this need to be treated as a human, this need to be respected. That's what I valued most during that entire experience. Was that it wasn't me, because towards the end of it, I didn't care. I was getting beat every day. I had no concern about the pain that it was. It was the mental stress of not being treated as a human being and not being treated as if I could handle myself, and that I wasn't good enough to protect my shipmates or work with this chief that has been working above me and you know, been treated with respect by all these other chiefs. It was that got to me.
You know, at first when you started talking and explaining like the conditioning of the military and stuff, or just in general, really, this is talking about group bonding and things like you think about a fraternity and hazing. And, you know, in psychology, it's that the more turmoil or negative process that you go through to associate with a group, the more you bond with them. And so at first I thought, oh, this is just what that is. But then you started talking about levels, and you know, in this situation, levels is a rank, you know, is a huge incentive. You know, seeing the people at the higher levels, and the first time you saw your superiors interact with them, you learned of the levels and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious, like, what part is gamification?
It sounds to me like it's gamification, like on a huge scale. They're not just redesigning a system to evoke a reward response. They're redesigning the entire social structure to evoke a certain pattern of behavior and a certain pattern of thought. Like, it's gamification of your entire psyche, not just for one activity, but for your entire, like, the entire way you operate.
I think what scares me is like the punishment aspect. It becomes very obvious, right? Like you react against it, but you were saying like the rewards, or like looking up to see what the rewards might be or how other people were treated, was sort of secondary. Like you didn't notice it right away. And I'm remembering this video. I think it was from Extra Credit, and it was about like gamification as far as like the citizen score thing that we talked about last week. How it being a positive thing is what makes it so incredibly scary, because it's not about punishing you, it's about rewarding you with points. And so like you sort of voluntarily start getting really into whatever the game of the system is. And if the game is being a good citizen and respecting the establishment or the government or whatever, and that's going to get your score to go, well, then you voluntarily do that. It's not because you're afraid of
Yeah.
punishment, it's because you're seeking some kind of reward. And that's like, I think, a lot harder to react against. Like we just sort of get lulled into it.
And the most powerful reinforcer is like what Skinner was talking about, is a variable ratio reward schedule. So this idea that you don't know what action specifically is going to give you the reward, just that sometimes you might get the reward. And so that can be more powerful than negative conditioning and things like that, because you keep doing the behavior until you get the reward, kind of thing.
Man, that's really counterintuitive to me, but like obviously I see it all over the place. People love fucking opening up a pack of Pokemon cards or Magic or whatever.
Exactly,
Or like when I was playing Mass Effect and I would get like a reward box and it's like, why is this random? Like it would piss me off.
Boxes in
It's like,
Overwatch, yeah.
I want to know what the loot is.
Right. That's what's so scary about it. The pigeon doesn't know that it's reading. Right?
Does everyone accept? Does everyone accept here metaphorically that you are the pigeon in the box, or like do some of you feel like you're real humans with control over your lives? Like, raise your hand if you think you have some kind of control. Okay, good. So,
some kind of control, because as a self-aware being, I can also enact this on other people. I can like also utilize it in manipulating my own environment and manipulating my own circumstances. So it's not like I'm only a victim to it. It's also a tool that, like, I see how it's used, and then I might be able to use that in another scenario.
Just a quick comment from Sarah about that. This is totally an extension of monetary systems, like a credit score. You cannot get a good score for being entirely responsible.
What does that mean? You have to go above and beyond, or like cheat or something?
No, like with a credit score specifically, like you have to take out loans. Like you have to basically borrow more money than you have in order to get a good credit score. Like you have to be irresponsible for the sake of your credit score, which helps the corporate institutions and like all of that.
That's exactly like how many people.
Clarification said if you pay everything properly, you don't get a good score.
Right, exactly.
That's really crazy. Yeah,
like
if you're
credit karma, you're like, don't pay everything on time.
But so if you're financially independent and wealthy and you can just pay everything in cash, your credit score is shit, right? Because like you haven't built up any.
Pretty much.
It could affect jobs. Some jobs actually check your credit. So even if you have money and you pay for everything on time and you don't need credit, it could actually affect other things. Other things check your credit, insurance rates.
I brought this up when I was talking about the Chinese citizen score thing. Like this has precedent because we have a score that affects all of our lives in that way, and that's how it works and operates. It operates to benefit the collective economic system.
It's so transparent, though. It's not about you being a good financially stable citizen. It's like, oh, you have to suck at the nipple of fucking whatever, like the financial institution, or else you don't count. You're not getting your points, and like, and then that's going to affect your job. Like that's so transparent.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, Tom Nautical, did you have anything more you wanted to add?
Well, from boot camp, I went onto the nuclear pipeline, which is a whole nother story.
So you're sort of talking about this with the awareness of going through the system. Like, were you aware the whole time of, I don't want to call it like necessarily a manipulation, but like, I guess what's like the general feeling of other people that are in the, like with you? Like, do they feel sort of the same observations you're talking about?
We're all really smart. I don't think there's a single nuke that hasn't been, like, as a child talked to by multiple psychiatrists, because we're all weird, crazy, messed up individuals. And they're all extremely smart and gifted in that way. We oftentimes lack common sense and this, sense of ability to communicate to people in a proper way. But for the most part, we are all extremely self-aware of everything that's happening around us. And it's just like this weird sort of thing that we talk about every now and then, but we don't ever really want to really bring it up because none of us really are able to really be sure exactly what's going on.
The pigeon in the box, it can't be too self-aware, right? Like if the pigeon knew what was going on in the Skinner box, I feel like they would get depressed.
It's depressing. Yeah.
I mean,
I'll be honest with you, it is.
Plenty of people are depressed. I mean,
And we're talking about self-awareness here, you know? I mean, like, how much are you self-aware of what's going on in your environment? And we're talking about reflection and looking back, you recounting your experiences and looking back on them. The very same stimuli seem different.
This is kind of something I wanted to bring up about it. Like, if you were looking back on the way you're, living your life and you're seeing this surfacey level reward motivation system, as validating as it is in the moment, it's not going to be necessarily inherently rewarding long term. Like, you're not going to get the sense of purpose and value in your life that we all need to be happy. Like, we need to have like meaning in our life, meaningful goals and a sense of purpose. And like, that's kind of what bugs me about the gamification of everything, is that instead of, like, it basically takes your motivation to craft your own value and your own sense of validation. Like, it takes that and it says, actually, don't do that. We're gonna give you the sense of validation, so you don't even have to make your own. We're just gonna hand it to you for doing, these little tasks that serve us. So serve us, and you'll get this validation, and then you don't even have to worry about it. But it's like candy. Like, it doesn't work long term. It's rewarding in the moment, and then long term, like, you're getting diabetes and being like, oh no, I maybe should have chosen different food, but it's become part of your life now.
Gamification is a relatively new term, and it's actually the Atlantic actually had an article titled like "Gamification is bullshit," and it's not saying that it's bullshit and that it doesn't work. It's saying it's bullshit that literally, like, the definition of gamification is adding bullshit achievement in between real achievement to keep people motivated. So specifically, it has to the gamification is adding nothing physical. Like, you might get a reward at the end, but it's adding the levels in between, adding the points in between. That's the gamification part. It's the part where you add bullshit in to help keep people on the treadmill, keep people on the Skinner in the Skinner box. And it's the gamification is specifically the bullshit part.
We aren't pigeons. Thankfully, we have self-awareness, and I think that there's certain boxes that we're in that are Skinner boxes that we know of, like credit card points, where I'm like, I'm going to get the American Express Delta Rewards card so I can, whatever, get blah, blah, blah. And but then there's other things, I think, that where we're not as aware. And I think that I think what we can do for each other as a community, as gamification or reward becomes, proliferates and becomes more common, is that if we all try to stay aware of the ways that rewards are being used to manipulate our own behaviors, because I think when we are in the Skinner box, it is often a nefarious way. They're trying to get money, or like gambling, like when people are at a slot machine or something. Like, I think it's helpful for us to try to be aware of what Skinner boxes we're actually in and figure out the ones that are less obvious than playing a video game or whatnot.
Well, what I find so depressing, though, is awareness doesn't help necessarily, or often for me. Like, I think a lot of us will see that we're in a certain box, and then you continue because it's sort of just you're part of that system, and sort of understanding that there are systems manipulating you doesn't prevent you from or give you the power to withstand it.
True.
It makes me sad, bro.
That is sad.
Yeah, you're talking about the heightened awareness. I feel like that is part of what the nuclear program does, is it knows that we have a heightened awareness of our surroundings. And it takes the fact that we know that if we get out of this shitty situation, everybody that we like in this program that we're growing up with and everything like that have been through everything that we've been through, that we have this respect for, that have gone through this shit, we're going to abandon them as well. And then also, if the nuclear navy were to go on strike, and then you've got no nuclear navy. There's very few people that are going to be able to defend an entire nation without aircraft carriers being able to move, without submarines being able to move. Aircraft carriers provide not only protection but also disaster relief and stuff like that. And your morals are messed with.
I mean, that's an interesting point, though, is that that gamification contributes to the structure of a system that, for a large part, a lot of us consider necessary. But then there's gamification that doesn't contribute to anything real or doesn't contribute to anything meaningful or that provides like lasting benefit. Like I mentioned before, I like the Google Maps thing because it's fun to get the gamification points, but then I'm also contributing to like the information that everyone can see, and like I'm actually providing a service, and I can find real meaning in that beyond just the number value, just beyond the points. It works together in a beneficial way. The points keep me motivated so that like I'm actually doing something that I care about.
In essence, I've always seen games as simplistic forms of living in the real world, where we take only these aspects and, we heighten them. And then the fact that we can, make something a game and then take it out of the game and apply it to real life. I mean, have you ever talked to somebody who is, let's say, a private in Battlefield versus somebody who's, a level 100 corporal, like the highest level you can be? They're still people, but they feel different than each other. In every single game where you have a ranking system, you start off the game and you're complete crap. And that's, to be expected. You don't know the game. But, you level up, you level up, you level up, you level up until you get to a point where you start looking down on others. What happens when you start taking that in-game experience and taking it out of the game?
I have run an internet forum for quite a long time, and we deliberately chose not to have any sort of ranking system. And I think it's also nice that in VRchat there is no ranking stuff. That's the first comment. And the other comment is, when augmented reality finally comes, because it'll bring all this gamification stuff like really hardcore, because have like in a real game, you will have this overlay and you can see the scores of each person and what they're doing and what they're not doing. And
it'll be very immediate.
Yesterday night, I was just watching this last season of Black Mirror, and precisely this episode where there's people are gamified and you have to give like stars or likes to people and for everything. So people start to become obsessed with their score, and if you have a higher social score, you get better benefits in society.
Yeah, I saw that
this
episode.
Is like the end game of gonna happen with the Chinese like point system with augmented reality, and maybe other parts of the world. I don't know. It's gonna be crazy.
Augmented reality, we're gonna see like this merge where all these crazy tools are gonna become so much more powerful just because they're more immediate and we can see them. And it's another thing to be worried about, I guess. Like another thing I'm scared of, the world changing. But also it might be really cool and exciting. Maybe I'll enjoy my fucking citizen score. Who knows? How do you guys feel?
Hey.
Yeah, it might be really fun and really like it'll give you a good sense of.
I'm certainly not going to be hanging out with like 2s and 3s because I'm at least a 4.
Yeah.
Hey, we already have a citizen score. The question is whether we'll just be allowed to know what it is. So, I think that's already happened.
So we're good, right? We got it. We don't know where the fuck's going to happen or where this is going. I'm scared of it. Maybe it's powerful. Maybe it's great. We'll find out.
Let's be more aware. I think.
Let's be more aware, dude. Let's give a shit.
Hey, I like that idea.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Let's all get up here and take a picture. Scooch in. Free Jinx, come on.
My controller's died. Trapped in my room.
All right, everybody. We're moving this photo over to Rejinx.
Yes.
All right. On the count of 3, say whatever you want. 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Whatever you want.
Change tonight. Change tonight.